Hi, it's Krista at The Secret Yarnery. Today we are talking about everything yarn holders. It's a lot, right? It's a lot of holders. I purchased them off of AliExpress. I'll put the links down below, but you can also get the exact same things off of Amazon, so I'll put all those links down below. You can decide which one is best for you. And we're gonna break it down into two types, two styles, magnetic and also the spinning kind that just spin on each other. If you have any questions about any of these or you have one, tell us your experience about it in the comments, and definitely check out those comments. There is a wealth of information down there. So let's get started. First, let me just share with you the background of yarn spinners, yarn holder spinners, why you would need them. The first impression I had was you need them for fancy yarn. If you have fancy yarn, some alpaca or some natural fibers, some Malabrigo, something that you cherish, if you use the center pull, you can harm those fibers. So just the action of pulling the center pull, the fibers can fight each other and it can get a little bit messy, which you wouldn't want if you had fancy yarn. Now for me, I don't really use fancy yarn. I have gorgeous yarn, but the center pull part doesn't bother me. So I'm like, I don't need one. I don't need a yarn holder spinner. Then I was working on a project, had to frog it back about 2 cakes worth, so 300 grams of yarn. And I frogged back onto my yarn spinner, yarn ball spinner that makes cakes, the Stanwood, also linked down below. I frog straight back to that, and it just kind of helps me not feel overwhelmed when I have to redo all of that yarn or re-stitch or re-crochet all of that yarn. It's nice and tidy, you don't feel bad about it, but you do have to work from the outside of your cake because the outside of your cake is attached to your work. So you can't center pull, you have to work from the outside of your cake. And that's when, for me, I realized it would be handy to have some sort of yarn holder spinner so that while I do have to work from the outside of my cake, I don't have to fight and keep yanking my yarn to loosen it before I crochet. It's just a step I feel like I don't need. So I did my best. I got a Lazy Susan from my kitchen, like a spice Lazy Susan, put the cake on it and tried to like spin it. It didn't really work, but I did order a yarn spinner that very day. The first 3 I ordered, was it 3 or 4? The first 4 I ordered were these guys, or the first that arrived were these and one more. Was there one more too? Yeah, there was one more. So all of these arrived. I thought that's what I needed. I needed a Lazy Susan for my yarn, something like this. So this is the wide base one. It's 15 centimeters across, which is probably about 6 inches. It is nice and big, great for cakes. They just sit right on. The good thing about this style, it has a metal spindle. So that slides really nice and easy onto your yarn. The first one that arrived was this one. So this it is a little metal dowel and it just sits on top. And it actually spins. I was like, that is not gonna work. It actually worked. The yarn can get stuck if you get going quick enough. The yarn can get stuck in this little groove here. And then it's like full stop. You have to stop, take it off, unwind it, kind of start again. It's also really small diameter base, probably like 4 inches, 3 inches, maybe 4, 3.5, 4 inches across. It's small, so it is a bit on the tippier side, but it's also super cheap. It was like $5, so I figure you get what you pay for. It did work. I didn't think it was gonna work. It did work. What I also don't like about it, it's really fat. This spindle is really fat compared to the metal ones. So I didn't like that. The metal ones, great. They spin really nice. Quiet, effortless. What I do notice with And this also, the yarn can get stuck underneath because there's a space there. So this is just like a stick and then a larger stick on top. And it just spins. It works great. Nothing wrong with it, except the yarn can get stuck in between those two discs, which is annoying. So I wouldn't recommend it. It works, I wouldn't recommend it. The other thing that's awkward, if you have a ball of yarn, and this goes for all of these metal spindle ones, all of the spinny ones, that are the non-magnetic ones. When your ball is underneath the tip, the yarn gets stuck here. So if you're taking off the yarn and it gets to the top, I'm going to have to pretend, but if it gets to the top part, see at the bottom, you have to pull it to get it. And then at the top, it can sit at the top and get stuck at the top as well, which kind of for me defeats the purpose. I want to just crochet. The whole point of having a yarn holder spinner is so that you don't have to be pulling at your yarn. It should just be coming off super easy. So that part bothered me. I tried putting it up higher, like putting it on a couple whip baskets. So it was higher than me on the surface, and hopefully it wouldn't get stuck at the top because I'd be pulling it more down. It was still awkward. It wasn't as bad, but it wasn't perfect. It still got stuck at the top. What does work for these is if you have a taller ball of yarn so that it goes over top of this stick or on top of the spindle, then you don't have that problem. It works a lot better. You still can put it up so that you're pulling so that it spins, or people just put it on the ground and then it just pulls straight off the top. But then why are you using it anyway? Just put your ball of yarn on the ground. You know what I mean? So I'd give it, like this one in particular, I give like a 3 out of 10, just because the yarn can get stuck. If you have to use a bigger cake than this stick. It looks nice. So couple points for looking nice, not my favorite. It is bigger, so this is definitely 4 inches. This is probably 3, this is probably 4 inches across. So you can definitely see a size difference. And then, of course, there is the bigger one. Now, moving on to the next step up. So the countersunk, it comes in the double, so you could have 2 balls of yarn. It comes with one with like Mickey Mouse ears, which is cute. What this is good for is if you put the ears towards yourself, it stops it from tipping. So those ears have a purpose. It's not just to look cute or like teddy bear ears. It is actually, they are like little legs to stop it from tipping over. You just put those ears towards yourself and it's much less tippy. So this would be tipping over. It's hard to tip it. Whereas if you have this style, it tips a lot easier. The ears are worth it. There's also the double version, the double countersink, which I thought that's great. If you just have a few of these, it's also heavy. So this is quite stable. It's also not gonna tip. I mean, it would be really hard to tip it. It's heavy. And I thought this would be great for using 2 balls of yarn. You could just put your 2 balls and just crochet nicely. I thought this would be great for filming tutorials. They can just sit there and be all nice and tidy. Problem, as you use your balls of yarn, they are gonna flatten and get sloppy. And then when you're pulling them, they're gonna start touching each other. So this double one sounds like a great idea. Really, it's only good if you use small balls of yarn, like 50-gram balls of yarn, because a real 100-gram ball of yarn, or any larger ball, is going to start hitting each other in the middle here once those balls get going. So that's something to think about. That's definitely a con. Although it looks nice, it's a nice feature. Is it the answer for everything? Probably not. Next, I tried the magnetic holders. They spin freely, super great. Problem is they can knock. So if you get going or you give it a good yank, it could knock on the post on that stick. What to do, because I used to have it facing me, so if I was crocheting, I'd be looking at it like this, but then when I'd be pulling on it, it was going that way. Do you know what I mean? So now I put it sideways, so if I'm pulling, it goes that way. It doesn't knock this a bit. What people have done is gotten one of those furniture felts, you know, those little sticky felts you get for underneath your chairs. They get one of those and just stick it on, or they crochet a little band to go around this bottom part so you don't get that knocking sound. You just put a little something on this stick. I find if I just turn it, it's very rare that I would be pulling so that it would swing side to side from where I'm at. It would be going back and forth, so I just make sure back and forth from where I'm sitting is free and clear, and now that sound doesn't bother me. So it comes in 2 different colors. You can get it in the pine or in the dark. So they call it natural or dark. So that just depends on what aesthetic you're looking for. The problem is Savor, or 200 grams. If you're using Joann Big Twist or anything like that, a 200 gram ball of yarn, it'll hold it. So that's 200 grams, it will hold it, but if you start crocheting on it, it can come off quite easily. Or even sometimes, see if I give it a little shake, it'll come off. So any sort of knock, it'll knock it right off. So that's a problem. Well, that's why I got the big one here, my big flat base, because I was like, I could use that for my big skeins of yarn. And so I needed 2 different kinds. I needed the magnetic for every day, because I find the free flowingness of a magnetic holder. Let me put a different ball of yarn on. How easily it spins, how easily it turns is 1,000,000% worth it. The yarn just comes straight off. It doesn't tangle up. There's nothing to tangle underneath. It is effortless. It just glides. You don't have to pull. It doesn't get stuck. Nothing gets stuck anywhere. It just turns freely 100% of the time. Love it. Problem is 200 gram balls of yarn. So I also ordered the Yarn Genie. So this is the same idea, but plastic. This says it can hold 200 grams. And you see the size of that magnet? There, can you see it? This is 15 millimeters, and this is a 10 millimeter. That little guy right there. See how they're different sizes completely? So I'm like, the magnet is what holds up the yarn. So sure enough, let me put it on a stick. Now that will hold. I do not have, my Yarn Genie came incomplete. It came with a wrong piece. So I'm waiting to hear back from the seller. But what I wanted to show you, regardless, I'm using the wooden spindle for it, is the distance from where the magnet is. Well, number one, it'll hold that yarn. Even if I'm holding, like it'll hold the yarn. So that's a good thing. The problem is, see how close it is, or how close the magnet is to this stick. Let me show you on a wooden one. Can you see the difference for clearance? And I'll switch them now so you can see what they look like the other way around. So see the difference in clearance. That is the Yarn Genie. So it still works, but it's quite close if you have a big ball. Whereas the wooden ones, tons of space, but not strong. So that got me on a whole mission, and this is how you can fix your yarn holder to do whatever you want to do, to hold whatever yarn you want. You can fix it. Totally easy to do. So I started with my wooden one here. I wanted to just pick that magnet out, that little magnet in there. I wanted to pick it out. So I got a screwdriver. I'll show you. I hacked at it. See that? Now the problem is, you know what happened? You do know what happened. The wood broke. I taped it back together so I wouldn't lose it. I'm gonna glue it, but I wanted to show you what not to do. So don't do this. Look. The glue for the magnet, stronger than the wood. So don't be bothering trying to replace that magnet. It's not going to work. So I just have to hot glue it. It'll still work. I'm going to just tape it back together so I don't lose it for now. So don't pick at the magnet. Removing the magnet, don't do that, won't work. So I went back to my AliExpress and I think I ordered these first, those little magnets. They are 10 centimeters, but I think they're only like 3 millimeters, 10 centimeters, 10 millimeters by 3 millimeters. Very thin. And pretty much the same strength, so it didn't add anything. Then I was like, let's get the same kind from the Yarn Genie, the bigger size. So that is 15 millimeters, same size as the Yarn Genie. Pops right on top. Problem, it slides around now. See? So even as you're using it, it slips around. It doesn't stay. So, didn't work. Got smaller ones, smaller and fatter. I literally tried all the magnets. That works. It slips a bit because it's 8 millimeters instead of 10. That works a little bit, but not strong enough. So that got me all into magnet shopping. I'm like, I need magnets. What is the deal? They're like, oh, you can get an N25. That's stronger, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, is that the strongest you can get? Because like, honestly, how many magnets did I order? I'd like to stop ordering magnets. I just want to get one that works. So I know it has to be 10 millimeters. I know it has to be thick enough to be strong enough. Now, if you're magnet shopping, magnets are cheap. Like you can get one for 10 cents, you can get one for $2. You gotta get the one for $2 because, and this is what you gotta do. These are N52, holy smokes. These are N52. They are, let me see that. They are 10 millimeters by 5 millimeters. They are hard to get off of the stack. Okay, you really have to fight to get them off. So this is N52, and let me show you, which is the strongest you can get. N25 is stronger, but it goes up in number. So 25 is not as strong as 52. 52 is the strongest that I could find easily. There is my little magnet. Now, that is not slipping around anywhere. And, are you ready for it? You cannot get that off. It would hold any amount of yarn. It still has clearance at the bottom. It still swings fine. And all you have is a little magnet sitting at the top. Boom! Can you imagine? Can you believe it? So all you need is a magnetic holder and a really good quality N52 10 millimeter by 5 millimeter. I'll link them down below so you don't have to stress out about finding them. Magnet for both sides. If you do have kids at home, young babies and things like that, it is a magnet. Be careful. Don't want anybody eating a magnet. But also, other side of the coin, these are so hard to remove, to like push it off. So that is something to think about. The one to get, in my opinion, is the double holder. So the magnetic double holder, because you can put your 2 spindles on it. Your 2 colors, you can use them at the same time. It doesn't tip because of the shape, and you just have it sitting this way. So if I'm crocheting here, I'm crocheting facing you, I would have this that way beside me. So as I'm crocheting, these just swing like that, totally silent, doesn't bother me a bit. And pop on 2. Basically all your yarn spinners need these N52 magnets. They just slam right on. And now you have a powerhouse of a yarn spinner. These aren't dropping anywhere. I love it. You can still get them off. They still just come off, but the magnet does not leave its house. It stays there. So that is how to fix your yarn spinner so that it holds any amount of yarn. You don't have to mess around. You don't have to have something big and clunky that doesn't totally work. You can invest in 1 or 2 of these and be living your best life. There is another tip I should give you from the comment. If you have a little yarn genie like this and it's a bit tippy, you can use one of these clamps, like a hardware clamp, and you just clamp it onto your work surface, boop, so that it does not move. It'll stay put. You could do that for any of these ones with the base. If they're wobbly for you, go ahead and get a clamp. If they don't hold enough yarn, go ahead and get an N52 magnet, 10mm by 5mm. And if you want to make more of these spindles, now this was a comment underneath the video, and thank you so much for it. It's genius. I have them in my shopping cart. I haven't checked out yet, but you buy coasters, plain coasters, which you can buy for craft kits. I guess people paint them and do designs on them for, you know, crafts and things like that. You just get a bunch of blanks. They're called wooden coaster blank or circles. And you also get doweling. You can just measure the same length. I can find ones that are 30 centimeters. I think this is 25. You just cut your doweling, screw it together, and use an upholstery tack at the end. All you need to do, so you can have an extra dozen of these spindles if you wanted to make your own. I'll link all that down below. So fun and easy to do. So this is now my official top pick. It's perfect for everything I want. Small bits of yarn, big bits of yarn, anything. Nothing's gonna fall off. These magnets are in place. And one last great tip, if you are using a yarn spinner, magnetic yarn spinner, or any spinner at all, when you're done with your yarn, you don't have to cake it up. You don't have that loose, flaccid, sloppy, empty skein or hollow skein. You have cute little balls of yarn like this. So you don't have to do any of that caking anymore. You just pop these straight back onto your shelf. They are ready for you next time. So it's actually saves you time, saves you stress, no yarn barf. Life is good. There is something I want to show you to know if you have to cake. Sometimes you do have to cake up your yarn before you use any sort of yarn holder spinner. And let me show you how to tell. So here is a gorgeous ball of yarn. I just took the band off of it. And sometimes when you take the band off, it gets loose. Like it feels like it needed that belt to hold it together. And when you take it off, it gets sloppy like that. So this type of ball of yarn, I would cake this first. So that would be caked like this, and then I would use it like this. If you take off your band, and your ball of yarn stays like a ball of yarn, you don't have to cake this. So this is a no cake. This is a yeah, you should cake. It'll just get messier as time goes on. So if you have any questions about any of these yarn spinners, or if you have used one and have any tips or tricks, please share them with us in the comments below. And thanks so much. Stay hooked.